Medjugorje is no stranger to controversy. It surprises people to know that Christianity was not banned in communist Yugoslavia. It had working churches that were run by the diocesan clergy that had the blessings of Rome. However, there had been an uneasiness in Yugoslavia between the diocesan clergy and the Franciscan clergy. Initially, the diocesan Bishop of Mostar supported the apparitions at Medjugorje, a Franciscan parish, and wrote positive newspaper articles about their supernatural nature. Suddenly, however, he changed his mind, disowned the visionaries and lampooned their apparitions. Many think he had been threatened with jail by the communist government. Several Franciscans had already been jailed by this time. In 1981, the Bishop of Mostar formed a commission to investigate psychophysiological questions regarding the miracles of Medjugorje. This commission was eventually taken out of the hands by the Vatican and placed under the control of the Bishops' Conference of Yugoslavia. They reported on the 10th of April 1991, Medjugorje is recognised as a place of prayer and worship. Also, they stated that it was not possible to declare the supernatural reality of the phenomena, but that such a possibility remains open for the future. Even today, the Catholic Church does not recognise the miraculous apparitions at Medjugorje. It is waiting for the Commission to decide, but it does not actively persuade the faithful to avoid going there. Parallel to these commissions, scientists had been shown an interest from the early days. In 1984, between March and December, Professor Henri Joyeux, concerned that the apparitions might soon stop, headed a French team from the University of Montpellier. This was the first team to perform detailed psychophysiological tests on the visionaries, and these were the first apparitions in history to be thoroughly investigated by science.
I traveled 4 times to Medjugorje with a team of 4 doctors. I'm a professor in medicine and I went there with 3 of my colleagues. A specialist in general practice and 2 in fields, which were important for the research to be done in Medjugorje. An engineer came with us. He performed 5 tests, each totally independent from the others. These tests covered all important areas of the body and mind of the visionaries. For example, we must mention the examination of the functioning of the brain before and after the ecstasy through an EEG, and as well examining eye functions. This was under detailed examination. We then examined the eyelid reflex functions in detail. The aim was to discover whether there was simultaneity among the visionaries at the moment of the beginning of the apparition.
In combination with Dr. Frigerio and colleagues from Italy, who did further investigations in 1985, the following points were concluded. Of the 5 visionaries tested, they were found to simultaneously look at the same spot, even though no reference point was visible, within 1/5 of a second of each other when the Virgin Mary appeared. During the same 1/5 of a second, there was simultaneous group kneeling and eye movement ceased. There was no eye movement during the entire apparition, which varied from 3 to 45 minutes. 2 of the visionaries did not blink at all during the apparition, when in rapture. The eyeball normally dries when there is no regular blinking, 15 to 20 times a minute to moisten the cornea, but lacrimal secretion does not seem necessary during the apparition. The other visionaries blink about half the normal rate. Cornea sensitivity to varying pressures is completely absent. Their blinking rate is slower after rapture than before. There is no reaction to pain during rapture. When touched with a device which caused a cutaneous lesion or skin burn, there was complete absence of sensitivity. The visionaries react normally to pain at other times. The results of a hearing test before rapture showed normal hearing, but during rapture an input of 90 decibels showed no reaction. Auditory evoked potential measurement, i.e. electrical activity of the ear, indicates normal ear activity with no transmission to the inner ear during the apparition. This is inexplicable physiologically. Electroencephalographic tests, EEG, confirm that the visionary's brain function is healthy and normal. EEG tests rule out the possibility of epilepsy or psychotic hallucinations. The visionaries are not asleep or dreaming either. Hysterical neurotic reaction or pathological ecstasy is also ruled out by EEG testing. EEG testing showed that before rapture the brainwaves are predominantly beta rhythm interspersed by alpha rhythm. This is normal conscious attentiveness. At the start of the apparition, the beta rhythm is quickly replaced by an almost uninterrupted alpha rhythm. This type of alpha rhythm is most often observed in people during relaxation, a state of expectation, or in meditation. Closed eyes would be expected with alpha rhythm because visual stimulation usually produces interference with alpha rhythm, but the visionary's eyes remain wide open throughout rapture. To test visual stimulation further, a 1000-watt light bulb was placed in front of the eyes of the visionaries during the apparition. Not only is a 1000-watt light bulb usually painful to the eye, but also it would normally cause increased blinking and influence alpha rhythm. There was no blinking movement of the eyelids to the 1000-watt stimulus. There was an interesting pupillary response. The pupil contracted as one would expect in bright light, but there was no change in alpha rhythm to the 1000-watt light bulb. During rapture, the visionaries' voices stopped during the time they had the vision. Even though all the mouth, jaw and throat muscles involved in speech continue, the larynx shuts off. This is impossible. The laryngeal function cannot be physically isolated from the rest of the muscles of speech, yet it was. At the bottom of the report, on the extraordinary events that are taking place in Medjugorje, compiled in 1986 by the French-Italian Scientific Theological Commission, these points were summarised. A French team of experts headed by Mr. Henri Joyot undertook a very serious work of examination of the visionaries. Employing the most modern equipment and expertise, it examined the internal reactions of the visionaries before, during and after the apparitions. Likewise, the synchronization of their ocular, auditory, cardiac and cerebral reactions. The results of that commission were very significant. They showed that the object of observation is external to the visionaries and that any external manipulation or mutual agreement between the visionaries is excluded. European psychologists visited Medjugorje in 1986, but the next major investigation took place much later in 1998. This was held at Como and Medjugorje between April and December and was led by Father Andreas Resch, theologian and psychologist from Institute for the Field Limits of Science in Innsbruck. He was helped by Dr. Giorgio Gagliardi, medical psychophysiologist from the Centre of Study and Research on Psychophysiology of States of Consciousness, Milano. Over 11 other doctors and professors were involved. The aim was to investigate whether the ecstatic state of rapture, already registered in 1985 by the Italian Doctors Working Group, still continued to be present or had undergone changes. In addition, it was designed to investigate potential coincidence divergence with other states of consciousness such as guided visualization or hypnosis. The conclusion was, the hypnotically induced state of ecstasy did not cause the phenomenology of spontaneous experiences, and therefore it can be deduced that the ecstatic states of spontaneous apparitions were not states of hypnotic trance. The results of the investigation carried out demonstrate that the ecstatic phenomenology can be compared to the one from 1985 with somewhat less intensity. This summarises the tests as they have been documented so far, but they are still ongoing. Miriana, however, has little interest in scientific tests.
For me, this research business was useless, as I believe what I see and I don't need anyone for that. If it can help people believe in God and in the Mother of God, then I agree to everything. But it was still quite difficult, always the same questions, the same equipment. If it really helps others, then I will put up with all this again. But for me, it is completely superfluous. I have never even inquired about the results.